The Precast Concrete Detention Calculator is an Excel-based tool that simplifies calculations needed to specify stormwater structures for underground detention and retention systems. To begin using the calculator, under the Detention Calculator tab, you can start by entering in the project information. For the date, we can put in today's date, project name, and who it was designed by. All these fields are free-form fields, so you could enter in the street, the city, state, telephone number. The next step would be to enter in the design volume in cubic feet. For this example, we'll put in 15,000 cubic feet. You'll notice that this switches over to gallonage, or converts it over to gallonage. For a finished grade elevation, we'll put in 101. The depth of pavement, we can put in 3 inches. You could enter in 0 here if it was in a grassy area. The depth of the aggregate subbase underneath the pavement will be 6 inches. And then next you select the model. Right now we have 3 different options for a type of model. I'll select the galley 4x4. These model selections are defined under the Standard Products tab, which we'll discuss at a later time. The next thing you'll notice, it enters in the dimensions of the structure, wall thicknesses, top and base thicknesses. You'll notice, for example, that the base thickness is 0 inches, which basically means that it's an open bottom structure. And then we have percentage of voids. So in situations where the walls might be a leaching wall, we'll see that the unit sidewall is 4 inches thick with 40% of it leaching. The next thing would be to enter in some of the minimum requirements, or requirements for like depth of cover and things of that nature. So the minimum for cover depth is 1, we'll enter 1. For perimeter stone it's 1, so we'll do 1. Stone depth below the structures, we'll put in a 1/2 foot even though the minimum is 0. This way here it allows the contractor to be able to put out a level base that's compacted. Row spacing is a 6-inch requirement for this, so we'll stay with that. Chamber spacing is at 0 inches, so we won't change that. And the stone porosity is at 40%. As you noticed, some of these fields were red indication, which I'll show there. That just lets you know that you are designing this with less than the minimum requirements. So there might be some problems or situations that might arise because of that. So we'll put that back to 1 foot. The next thing you can do is enter in your costs if you want this to do an estimate of your materials. For this example, we'll put in a chamber cost of $150 per chamber. Excavation costs of, say, $7 per yard. Stone costs, say, at $15 per yard. Right, the next section is the project overview. This details a side view of the storage area showing the elevations. So we have a finished grade of 101, top of structure at 100, floor and outside of structure is at the same elevation because the unit base thickness is 0 inches. And then the bottom of your stone is at 94.83, so that's basically your excavation depth. So the next thing is we decide is how many rows of chambers that we're going to do. That's the only information that you need to input, and then the calculator will determine the footprint based on that. So let's just start off with 10 rows. In this example, it shows that there'll be 18 chambers per row. The width is 53.17 and 86 is the length for your detention system footprint. This here takes in consideration the stone perimeter, wall thicknesses, spacing, all that is taken into consideration. Let's just say we wanted to square this off a little bit more, so we'll change our 10 rows of chambers to 12. Now we're at 63.5 feet by 72 feet, so that's more in the size of the field that we need. You'll notice that there's 15 chambers per row, and that the actual storage volume is just over our design volume. So we'll move on to page 2, and it carries over some of the information. We have the number of rows, the length of each row. We have the average storage of a chamber with and without the stone. And we have total chamber volume and total stone storage volume. You'll see that our actual storage ends up being 101% of the required. And then we break down a little bit into what all the sections are in their quantities. Sometimes the corner units, end units, side units could all be the same. It all depends. But basically this system has 12 rows, therefore would have 4 corner units and 20 end units. And then basically breaks it down to 180 total chambers. We have a little detail of the dimensions of our chambers. So we see that they're 4x4 inside dimension, 0 inches for the floor, 4-inch wall thickness, 8-inch slab, and each section is 4 feet long. Then at the bottom we have costing. So we basically took all the chamber costs, 180 of them at 150, stone costs, 181 yards at $15 a yard, and excavation costs, we have 1,044 yards that you would need to excavate at $7 a yard. So this gives you an estimate of what the materials cost would be.